Imagine your entire universe constructed only of textures and sounds. No faces, no sunlight, just the rough grit of the earth under your hands, day after day, begging for survival in the dust. In first-century Jerusalem, this total physical darkness carried a crushing theological weight. The society around this man believed his condition was a direct divine punishment. The assumption was that either he or his parents had sinned, making his blindness the visible receipt of God's anger. Then Jesus encounters him and immediately dismantles that worldview. He tells his disciples, "Neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him." He identifies the man's condition as an opportunity for a miracle rather than a mark of shame. Up until that exact moment, this man was barely viewed as a human being. He was trapped in a society that looked at him and saw only a living, breathing warning label. The healing process itself is visceral. Jesus spits into the dirt, mixing raw earth and water to form a thick clay, and then physically presses this mud onto the man's unseeing eyes. Now, with his eyes caked in wet earth, the man is given a simple but terrifying instruction: navigate through the crowded, uneven streets to the pool of Siloam and wash. He steps down into the ancient reservoir. As the cool water clears the mud, his optical nerves fire for the first time. He sees light, architecture, and colors. But walking back up those steps did not result in a joyful celebration. Instead, it immediately plunged him into a highly dangerous societal conflict. Gaining his vision solved his physical limitation, but it instantly shattered the only world and the only identity he had ever known. The friction starts the moment he returns home. His neighbors are in such complete disbelief that they refuse to recognize him. They argue among themselves, forcing the man to aggressively interrupt them just to assert his own existence, repeating, "I am he." The chaos attracts the Pharisees, who pull him in for formal interrogation. The problem? Jesus mixed clay and healed him on the Sabbath, violating their strict religious statutes. This diagram illustrates their theological trap. They have a rigid geometric grid of Sabbath laws, and they are trying to force a single glowing data point, a man who was blind and can now see, into that inflexible structure. The data point breaks the grid. While the elites tie themselves in knots trying to rationalize how a sinner could perform a miracle, the man relies solely on his unshakable lived experience. He simply tells them, "He put clay upon mine eyes, and I washed, and do see." For the Pharisees, protecting the law became more important than acknowledging the man's healing. Their interrogation attempted to criminalize a miracle because it challenged their control over the Sabbath. Desperate to find a flaw in the story, the authorities pivot. They summon the man's parents, hoping to expose the whole thing as a fraud. What follows is a heartbreaking betrayal. Terrified of being excommunicated and cut off from their entire community, his parents shrink back. They confirm he is their son and was born blind, but pass the responsibility back to him, saying, "He is of age, ask him." In a matter of minutes, a vacuum opens around him. He realizes that the people who raised him have abandoned him, leaving him to face the most powerful men in his city entirely alone. The Pharisees demand he denounce Jesus as a sinner, but instead of engaging in complex theological debates, he anchors his defense entirely on the truth. He stares back at them and says, "Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that whereas I was blind, now I see." He even begins to mock their logic, asking if they want to become Jesus' disciples too. Furious that a beggar would dare lecture them, they aggressively cast him out of the synagogue, excommunicating him from their society. Gaining his sight cost him his family and his place in the community, proving that standing by the truth can leave a person completely alone. But the story doesn't end with him alone in the street. When Jesus hears the man was cast out, he intentionally goes looking for him. He did not heal his body only to leave him to the consequences. When they meet again, Jesus asks if he believes on the Son of God. The outcast, having already paid the social price for his truth, replies, "Lord, I believe." This leads Jesus to present a striking paradox to the gathering crowd. He declares that he came into the world so that the blind might see, and that those who claim to see might be made blind. While the beggar walked into the light, the authorities remained in the dark, blinded by their own pride and theological certainty. They possessed perfect physical sight, but suffered from a refusal to acknowledge the facts before them. Opening one's eyes is a physical act. Acknowledging what they see is a choice that can carry a heavy social price. This account suggests that seeing requires a willingness to stand by the truth, even if the world around you refuses to believe it.